Most little girls are enthralled with the idea of being a princess. This is Rapunzel. The last time I visited Disney World, I was reminded that time and technology haven't begun to rob us of fairy tale dreams. I have never seen so many little ones in costume, sometimes head to toe in polyester in Florida heat. Here's our not so little princess anymore, getting a sprinkling of pixie dust at the increasingly popular Bippity Boppity Boutique. For many little girls, this is being a Disney princess. But what if you really became a Disney princess? Whew. Jennifer Beckham's dream really came true. Cinderella, Snow White, she's been all of them. And it's still a story we love to tell. I don't know, Jennifer, if you're weary of the princesses that you once were, but they'll never be apart from you.
That's right.
And they have become a vehicle to help
Absolutely.
Women of all ages recover the true royal essence of the woman they were meant to be.
That's right.
I had to be reminded that you're from Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes, ma'am.
So Disney was part of your vacation life.
Oh, always, always. Right there in the backyard, but we still, that was our favorite spot, and that's where really my whole story started. Is right there at Disney.
And it's a warm start, close family.
Yeah, very close family.
You were somewhere in the middle of how many children?
I was fourth of five.
Fourth of five.
Yeah. Yeah, so we loved it. It was a wonderful vacation spot, but it was also where I spoke out words that apparently God was listening to. Yeah.
Such as?
I said to my mom at the age of 7 when I saw Cinderella go by in her stagecoach, I said, Mom, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a Disney princess. And, you know, like you're saying, I think that is the desire of every girl's heart, is to look good on the outside, to feel good on the inside, to have somebody blowing us kisses and adoring us and cherishing us. And, you know, that whole scene, I think, is what I was speaking about. But God took me very literally, and I had the opportunity to work in costume and do those things. But by then, the dream of my little girl's heart had met the realities of life, and that's kind of where everything took a turn for me.
Okay, before we go to that turn, before we go to the nightmare, let's just bask for a moment in the dream fulfilled. Because how many years did it take for you to actually become the woman you saw waving to you from that stagecoach, that golden coach?
Right. I said it when I was 7, and then when I was 17, 18, and 19 is the years that I worked for Disney.
And here's another sweet irony. I mean, God writes amazing stories.
He does.
What coach did you ride in Tokyo Disney in Japan?
The exact one that I pointed out at the age of 7.
They shipped it.
They shipped it. It was over there. I was the 10th anniversary cast in Tokyo Disneyland, and that was the exact same float, the exact same parade that I was able to perform in there, 13 years later. So you're right. God writes amazing stories, and there's always a deeper purpose than what we just think on the outside.
You know, I thought of the scripture, Psalm 106, verse 15. He gave them their request, but sent leanness into their soul. What wasn't beautiful about this?
Well, by that
dream come true.
By that time, you know, I spoke those words when I was 7, and by the time that I was 17, 18, and 19, hired by Disney, working there, life had happened. And life had happened in the form of, you know, 6th, 7th, 8th grade was when there was a lot of mental illness within my family, a lot of hospitalizations, and cancer visited our home. And my hero, my father, was diagnosed with cancer in my 7th grade year, and by my 9th grade year, he wasted away to skin and bones. And as a little girl watching all of that happen and being in the midst of it, you know, there's so many, we all have a story. But my story wasn't one of abuse. Mine wasn't one of the tragedies that we see so oftentimes on TV. Mine was just a desperation, just a cry of loneliness. I was in a home of 5, you know, there were 5 of us siblings growing up, wonderful family, 2 parents at home, but there was always this feeling of insecurity and and fear of not knowing what tomorrow would bring because of the situations within our family with the mental illness and the illness. And it was just one of those things where I just always felt empty, and I didn't have anybody to talk to, or I didn't feel like I did. And as a result of that, I spent a lot of time alone in my own insecurities. And then when my father died, I began running. I was 14. I was 14. I was a teenager, and there was a moment where I almost went to Mom, because I was very close with her, and I almost went to her to share with her what was going on the inside of me. But when I did, Mom was having a good day that day, and I didn't want to ruin her day. And then another moment that I wanted to go with her, she was distraught and crying, and I didn't want to make it worse. So I just learned how to deal with it myself, and it never got dealt with at all. I learned how to cope. I learned how to put it somewhere and to cope with it by looking for relationships and seeking love in wrong places and all of those things, but it wasn't actually ever dealt with until very much later in my life.
Interesting. I'm sure a sense of abandonment, nobody there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I always say that you're only as alone in life as you choose to be, and I chose to be, because every time I looked around and tried to reach out or thought about it, I overthought it to the point where I didn't want to hurt anybody, I didn't want to talk to anybody, and I just didn't want to open those can of worms. I just thought it would go away. I thought time would heal all wounds.
And this started affecting your work as a princess.
It did. It did. You know, I think that what I was hoping was that when I would get to Disney, that dream in my heart would become the reality in my life, and that I would look around and it would all come together, and I would step into those shoes as a princess, and as a result, so too would my life take that form. I would meet a wonderful Prince Charming, and I would, you know, all of that, and I would feel pretty. I think that's what I was looking for the most.
They put a lot of stock in that pixie dust.
Absolutely.
I know that.
I think I was looking for that. When I stepped into those shoes, that what I would do was feel pretty and my shoulders would be squared. But what it was just this huge realization that this isn't where it's at either. And that was even more disappointing, I think, was setting your eyes on something that you think you're going to find when you get there. And then when you get there, it's not. It's not.
This dream come true, unfathomably, really. It's an amazing thing. Was a severe mercy from God's hand, because you probably had to get to what you thought was going to be the pinnacle to discover, okay, I am at wit's end corner. There had to be a crushing to get to the real need in you.
Right.
How did that happen?
Well, I always say that there's got to be that aha moment in your life, you know, where we stop fooling ourselves and we really need to look at it. And the moment that I really needed to look at it was getting up on top of that float. What I thought God was doing was taking me to my dream, and He was, but His dream for my life was far greater than any dream that I ever had for myself. And He had to bring me to that point. And yes, the crushing blow of this isn't where my happiness lies, and this isn't where fulfillment lies, so that I could then reach the end of myself and look up and cry out. And that moment for me was when I was a bulimic, looking for love in all the wrong places, during the day dressing up like a princess, but at night when the costume would come off, the makeup would come off, being that bulimic, looking for love in all the wrong places, searching for it in the arms of other men and substance and all of those things.
And as beautiful as you are, you didn't like the girl in the mirror.
Couldn't stand her. Couldn't stand her. And I think that the more that I went looking and the more I made mistakes, the more I'd look back in the mirror and go, who are you? I don't like you. You weren't raised like this. You're making horrible choices, but I didn't know how to turn it around. I just didn't know how to turn it around. And it was actually 2 girls that were on cast with me at Disney on my lowest of days, and they invited me to a Billy Graham crusade in Japan after I'd been raised in church all of my life. So here I go to the Tokyo Dome with these girls, and honestly, it wasn't because I said that's where I'm going to find it. It was just like, you know what, I've got an option. Either I go home and I go into a bulimic fit and I hug the toilet all night long and hate myself, or I go with them, because that's got to be a better option. And as a result, that's really where I found it.
January